Hello, thank you for tuning into the Natural Health Rising podcast. My name is Rachel Smith. I am a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and I've helped hundreds of people naturally reverse symptoms of autoimmune diseases and other health challenges, from digestive issues to hormone imbalances. And in these weekly episodes, you're going to learn from myself and top health experts from around the world about functional medicine and holistic health tips to help you rise to your healthiest, happiest self. In today's episode, my guest is Sophia Ruan Gushée. Sophia is a non toxic lifestyle expert and author of A to Z of Detoxing, the ultimate guide to reducing your toxic exposures, and several detox workbooks. Sophia also served on the Brown University School of Public Health Advisory Council and Well and Good Council. She is praised by experts in both medical and wellness fields for her practical approach to avoiding toxins and cultivating a healthier home environment. Welcome to the show, Sophia.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a lot about toxins today, which is going to be exciting. And these toxins that are in pretty much everyone's products, whether that be shampoos, makeups, cleaning products, and so on. But before we dive into exactly what all of those are, why should people listen to this episode today? Like, what are some shocking things that these chemicals that we're going to talk about, what do they do to our health?
Such a great question and a really complex one because there are many variables that influence how these toxic exposures affect us. So, starting from when we're in the womb, hormones guide the development of our biological foundation. As soon as we're conceived, hormones create or lead the development of our brain, our heart, our reproductive system, our respiratory system, and so much more. So if we're exposed to man-made hormone disrupting chemicals, those chemicals are participating in the development of our biological foundation. And in recent decades, there's been this new field of science called the fetal origins of adult onset diseases that science is studying the fetal origins of things that show up later on in life. And so by being really conservative during the prenatal period, you're really investing in the life quality of someone's health and development for the rest of their life. And other major stages of development that are especially influenced by hormones are during early childhood. And just a reminder, the brain continues to develop until our mid-20s, but also puberty and menopause is probably barely studied, but that's another time when there are major shifts in hormones and then our biology follows suit. But so that's just endocrine disrupting chemicals. But if you're exposed to cancer-causing chemicals or neurotoxins or reproductive toxins or developmental toxins on a recurring basis, because maybe it's in your, let's say, makeup, your lotions, your cleaning products, but basically the things you buy for your home, then that's just starting to be understood. But we are finding that certain health issues are being associated with a higher body burden of certain pollutants. And that's been studied in wildlife for probably longer than in humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned something about a little bit in our products, and we're using these things ongoing. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, it's just a little bit of this thing in my makeup. It's just a little bit in my shampoo." What do you have to say about that, that pushback that people give?
So let's just say there are hormone disrupting chemicals in your shampoo, conditioner, hair products, cosmetics. You're washing your hair and reapplying lotions and cosmetics at least once a day, generally on average, or multiple times a week. So those exposures just add up. And I think about, it's almost like, we have a lot of natural resiliency, and your your bucket can take a lot before it pivots towards a tipping point. So you just
Mm-hmm.
want to unburden what you can. For example, if you have French fries sometimes once in a while, not a big deal. If you're exposed to bad things, sometimes not a big deal. There's resiliency. But if you have French fries every day, then that's when you'll notice health effects much sooner.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Yeah.
same idea with toxic exposures, and we're understanding with more detail how many non-genetic factors interplay to influence our health outcomes. So the more you can just unburden what your body has to deal with, then the more likely you are to experience better luck and feeling better, and well, just feeling your best.
Mm-hmm. Are there other misconceptions about toxins and products that you hear?
In addition to a little bit won't hurt you, because as I said earlier, the timing of exposure really matters. I think if
Mm.
you're a fully developed human, a little exposures here and there really doesn't hurt you. But if you look forward to getting pregnant in the future, then it's so meaningful. If you are pregnant, if you're breastfeeding, if you're taking care of young kids, then the more conservative you can be, the really it's such a worthwhile investment, because again, young life is so highly influenced by these toxic exposures. But another preconception might be among your listeners and those and their parents and grandparents is that when I was growing up, I didn't have to worry about these things and I turned out okay.
Mm-hmm.
The environment has changed so much every year. It's estimated that every year there have been 1,000 to 3,000 new chemicals introduced. And just since World War II, there have been 84,000, no, over 86,000 chemicals introduced into just American commerce. Most people assume that if these chemicals are allowed to be used in, let's say, American products and sold on American store shelves, then they must be safe. The reality is less than 1% have been tested for safety, and the US bans or regulates less than a dozen chemicals in beauty products, whereas in Europe, they have over 1,300 chemicals that have been banned. So it's really interesting, which I dive into in my book, A to Z of Detoxing, to look more internationally at how different governments around the world and even domestically in the US have responded to the body of science that exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
America is surprisingly relaxed. Europe is much more, they take a precautionary approach to the science. But within the United States, California leads the way in also having a precautionary approach. And by precautionary, that can even mean they're reacting to science that says, certain toxic exposures are harmful, and they regulate it much more than many other states.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed a difference traveling to Europe quite a bit over the past few months of how their products look different at the stores with self-care things, as well as even eating the food and just tasting a difference in the quality of food and the oils and the ingredients that they use in Europe versus the United States. So it is a really big thing. And then I'm glad you also
And
brought
one
up,
simple,
yeah, I'm
I'm
also
sorry to
glad.
interrupt.
No, you're good. I think we have a little lag here. It's okay. Um, also, there's some studies, I believe, on umbilical cord blood, right? And having like a couple hundred or a few hundred chemicals detected in that umbilical cord blood. So that, as you mentioned, like if you're pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant, I mean, it takes a while to also go through this process of getting chemicals out of your environment and your body. And so there's a lot that can be done and thought about even before you go to get pregnant to prevent a lot of these chemicals from getting into passing those on to the baby.
Absolutely. The study you're referring to found almost 300 industrial chemicals in umbilical cord blood, and microplastics have been
Mm.
increasingly detected in a number of organs, including the placenta. And there's so many household products where if you just knew that there are microplastics in it, you would probably happily make another choice. Most recently, I learned about gift wrapping materials and anything with glitter. Glitter is made of microplastics. I never really thought about that, but I happily will avoid glitter now. And there's certain like decorative elements of gift wrapping materials or like holiday cards where there's like a foil. Often lead has been found in that. And so there are these simple, those are just examples of things we overlook in our everyday lives where once you know better, you don't mind making a safer choice. And those exposures can really add up, especially if you have young kids in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I want to mention about something most people may not realize, I'll introduce the idea of electromagnetic fields from our technology. And so I've dived into the EMFs, as they're called, which is really just the radiation from both our wireless and wired technologies. And there's this assumption that it must be safe. They exist in a growing list of products, not just our cell phones and laptops, but our kitchen appliances, our laundry machines, and toys and diapers and toilets, so many things. There's this assumption, this false assumption that these things, these technologies must be tested for safety. In the United States, the FCC regulates this, and the standards currently are based on 1996 standards. And a nonprofit, the Environmental Health Trust, which was founded by Dr. Deborah Davis, a leading scientist on how EMFs affect human health, they sued the FCC along with other plaintiffs for the FCC ignoring science submitted by scientists from around the world and physicians and other public health advocates. And they won. The judge ruled uh, it ruled in their favor. The judge then also said to the FCC, you have these list of things to respond to, but there's no deadline. And so I just think more of the public should be aware that current standards do not reflect what science has discovered since 1996. And the iPhone came out in 2007. So it's wise to take a precautionary approach, which doesn't mean don't have technology. It just means use airplane mode more often, for example. That's one simple thing you can do to disable cellular Wi-Fi and Bluetooth when you don't need it, like when you're sleeping. There are many simple things you can do to reduce your daily exposures.
Mm-hmm. We won't stay on EMFs too long, but do you have a couple more tips for people that you find really helpful?
Another easy tip is that the radiation decreases with distance.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to create distance whenever you can is a good thing to do. Sperm quality has been found to be damaged by cell phone radiation when, for example, the phone is in a pant pocket. So you should avoid doing that whenever possible. When you need it in your pocket, just ideally turn the phone off. When that's not possible, airplane mode helps. But another thing is just clear your sleep area of any unnecessary technology, including things that are plugged in, like a lamp. And
Hmm.
for the things you need in the room, then just keep it on like a dresser top from across, where across the room. So distance is best, unplugging what you don't need and disabling the wireless emissions when you don't need them. Those are
Hmm.
three great things you could spend the rest of your life working on.
Yeah. And I've also sometimes had clients say that their Wi-Fi router is in their bedroom or in the closet in their bedroom or something. So getting that out of there, and of course, turning that off at night if possible, is another really good, simple tip. What are your thoughts on like the EMF blocking devices, the EMF headphones, like protection headphones, these little tiny discs that you can put near a laptop or in the house that are said to reduce or block the EMFs? Have you found these to be useful at all?
Anytime I can speak to a scientist or a physician who is an expert in this area, I always ask them, and each of them have said they don't work. So I just assume that they don't work because I don't want to have a false sense of security.
Okay. So we'll get back to more of the toxin things. And something that I want to dive into is the idea of maybe like greenwashing, right? Where a product says natural or non-toxic on the label, and the market's really getting flooded with these things now. But when we turn it over and we look at the ingredients, it's not really super non-toxic. There's still some harmful ingredients in there. So, what are some, there's lots of products and things out there. So maybe some top common products that come to mind that people should really start to pay attention to. And then how can they know, like, what are they buying? Are there any tips that people can look for when they're purchasing these items?
Yeah, there are many common sense approaches that I've developed after studying hundreds of household products. And I as I studied a lot of products, including those, especially those that are labeled organic and natural, because I trusted those labels when I was first getting into this, I then would realize that many of the products that appeared to be safer were not as safe as I wanted them to be. So, as you were saying, natural and organic is really not regulated as much as you think. Natural is not regulated at all. Non-toxic is not regulated. And so I actually use those product claims as a signal that there's greenwashing and that it's being used to manipulate consumers. So I just take that as a red flag. And when I look at the ingredient list, if I see fragrance, then I know that that could include up to hundreds of toxic chemicals or up to hundreds of chemicals, some of which are likely to be toxic. Fragrance is actually in many, many products. So I think, again, a common sense approach is if you are reading ingredients and you see fragrance, which you most likely will, then I put that in a high risk category and I keep looking for products that either are fragrance free or use 100% pure essential oils. But even that it's really hard to know how pure they are. So I try and go for fragrance free. I look to see, are there artificial colors or preservatives? Or if you're looking at food items, then I look for certain kinds of processed sugars. But again, if you look at just the color, if it looks like a bright orange or purple, if you're talking about like dishwashing detergent, then clearly chemicals are at play. Um, so colors, fragrance, and another common sense approach is if you see a shiny gloss on a surface area, whether it's paper, like receipts, wrapping paper, anything that is resistant to water, stains, bacterial growth, wrinkles, chemicals are involved. And really, no one probably has studied whether it's truly non-toxic. So I just, again, put it in a high risk category and wonder, do I really need that or love it? And most often I look for a healthier alternative. So there's a process of elimination, and those three things will eliminate most things.
Okay. Those are great tips. And I'm glad you brought up fragrances because I think this is a really big problem. And I personally have, I understand how harmful this can be to some people because I used to, before I became a functional medicine practitioner, I was super sick myself. And I remember just coming close to somebody who had perfume on would give me an instant headache, would make me feel nauseous. It was horrible. And over time, as I healed my body, those things don't really affect me as much, but they are super disruptive to our bodies. So, people want to smell nice. A lot of people don't know that perfumes have all these chemicals and fragrances in them. What do you suggest for perfume alternatives, or are there perfumes out there that are safe?
For many years, I avoided all fragrances. And during that time, I had young kids. I was pregnant, I was nursing. So it was especially worthwhile. And my protective instincts were happy to go out of my way. And I think after 10 years of living a fragrance-free life, I really missed smelling
Mm,
nicer. Um, I did dabble when my children were older into essential oils, which have become staples in our household for, at first I started using them for scents, but I now just really use them for natural remedies. So, for example, when the skin is really itchy, my children and I find peppermint oil or lavender oil to be really like truly healing and helpful for the skin, not just like a
mhm,
band-aid solution, but deeply helpful. And so essential oils became part of our life after I was trying to look for safer alternatives to conventional fragrances. But by now, there are new fragrance products that have been verified by the Environmental Working Group. And so I've bought some of those to use when it would make me really happy. So that means it's not every day,
mhm,
just when I really want it. And
mhm,
that already is a way to detox your exposures, to just use mindfully chosen products when you really want them, when they make you really happy.
mhm. Yeah, I have a similar experience. I probably like the past 5 years, I was totally fragrance free, but I would use some essential oils, and everybody always said I smelled like an essential oil shop or like a spiritual shop walking around. Um, and then recently I tried Henry Rose. I don't know if that's the company that you've
Yes,
tried as well.
I have like a sample kit of Henry
Same.
Rose scents.
Yeah, I really like them, but yeah, using them kind of minimally as well. And now this reminds me of also what about the home? There's Glade plugins and air fresheners and candles and all these things. And, we definitely shouldn't be using the Glade plugins and the air fresheners, but candles, there are some candles out there that they say, oh, well, this is beeswax or this is soy or this has essential oils in it. Can somebody burn something like Palo Santo or a clean candle, or is that combustion just in general still toxic to be inhaled? And should people really stick to essential oil diffusers maybe in the home instead?
I mean, the most non-toxic thing is or approach is to burn nothing, because as
Hmm.
you said, combustion activity generally releases either fumes or tiny particles that are probably better for us to avoid. But if you're living a healthy lifestyle, then I think um, you don't want to live a totally non-toxic life. It might not be a life worth living. It'd be a life without certain joys. And so, again, the perfect answer from a toxic exposures perspective is to not burn anything. But if you really want to burn something, there are certain candles that are safer to burn. So, as you said, 100% pure beeswax is an excellent choice. You
Mm-hmm.
also want to make sure the wick is an organic material like organic cotton, organic hemp, and not use a wick that has like a metal interior. Lead has been found in some of those. Lots of candles have fragrance in them, and so look for a candle that's either fragrance-free, that would be ideal. If you really want fragrance, then pure essential oils is the healthiest alternative. And I'm sure there are, uh, I shouldn't say I'm sure, I haven't tested or read this, but healthy synthetic fragrances probably could be created, but they just haven't been really studied or proven to be safe. So it's just hard to know.
Mm-hmm.
Palo Santo, I love the smell of it.
Me
And
too.
it is a burning of wood, but I think for me, I've decided it's worth it. I don't do it all the time. I'm not burning it all day, 24/7. So when you burn it, maybe crack open some windows to allow fresh air exchange. And if for whatever reason you don't want to do it when you're burning the Palo Santo, whenever you can, just keep in mind that indoor air is generally 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air, even in the most industrialized cities. And depending on what's going on inside, the EPA has found indoor air quality to be even more polluted than 5 times, up to 1,000 times. If like you're painting or smoking, or there's a fireplace um, active inside. So again, whenever there's combustion activity inside, then toxic fumes and particles can build up inside. So just crack open the windows when outdoor air quality is better than indoor air quality.
Mm-hmm. Those are great
I'm
tips.
going to pause 1 second and get
Okay.
out of the sun.
Okay.
Uh,
So we have talked a bit about air quality on this podcast, more so directed towards mold specifically, but not necessarily other ways to keep the design of the home non-toxic. And something I think is really interesting is like the idea of mattresses and furniture and paint and all of these other little details that most people are not thinking about. Do you have any tips on how people can design their space in a way to reduce toxins?
There are really countless ways, and I just hope that people enjoy the experience of learning more. I have found
Mm,
it so fascinating, and it's just become mindful living. I think of it as yoga off the yoga mat.
mm,
For me, what was really transformative was dissecting a mattress. And the reason I did that, which was not physically dissected, even though like I'd go to stores to look at the materials to see what materials am I reading about that's inside the mattress? What does it look like? And I wanted to do it because I was willing to pay anything for the most non-toxic crib mattress for my firstborn. And I was so frustrated by the greenwashing. It was hard to know which ones were truly safe. I didn't care how much it cost. To me, it seemed like the risks were potentially contributing to sudden infant death syndrome, so life or death. And
mm,
I realized in understanding the common materials that create a mattress, they also create countless other things in our home: our furniture, our carpets and rugs, our curtains, our pillows, our cushions, our toys, our clothes. I mean, so many things. So in my book, A to Z of Detoxing, I share the key components, and it really simplified my shopping because I got to a point around that time when I felt like I couldn't just buy something I liked at a store. If I wanted to buy something, I felt like I had to go home and research it. And after a while, the more I learned, the more I realized this is not a sustainable approach. I can't research every purchase, especially once you have kids. You realize your purchasing activity skyrockets. and and so just getting to know these common materials, which I call household repeat offenders in my book, A to Z of Detoxing. It's such a worthwhile thing to understand because then you start to notice these household repeat offenders and not just your interior furnishings like your mattresses and furniture, how you decorate your home, but also in your toys, in your clothes, in the ingredients to look out for in cleaning products are also in your beauty products and personal care products and in our diet and food items. And ultimately, all of this is concentrated in children's products and baby products. So easy ways to start detoxing your home is to declutter. Most of
Mhm.
us have more things than we want. Most things probably contribute to indoor air pollution. And so if you don't love it or need it, then detoxing your home is just another way to reduce your toxic exposures. A lot of chemicals and heavy metals that are in household products get released into our indoor air and dust and onto our fingertips. So we absorb it, we inhale it. So just declutter. And then, I dive into household repeat offenders a lot more in the book on my online detox academy because most of us don't really think about what makes up a lot of our household products, but you'll you'll just realize that, for example, dental floss, it took me a long time to realize that's made of plastic, and
Mhm.
there's usually fragrance and chemicals for some flavor like mint. There are microplastics in some toothpaste, in many personal care products. And so once you become aware of what to look for, you just see it much more intuitively.
Mhm.
Less with your brain and more with your senses, your sight, your feel, your smell.
Mhm. What about the no shoes policy? I like to be strict on this, but a lot of people walk around their homes inside with their shoes on. So why is this also a big problem with air quality and safety and toxins in the home?
Yeah, there's a study by the EPA that's sometimes referred to as the doormat study. And it found that the bottom of shoes tracks in a lot of various chemicals and heavy metals in addition to dirt and bacteria. But in the doormat study, the EPA found that if you wipe your shoes on a thick doormat and leave your shoes at the entrance of a home, ideally out right outside the home, you can reduce lead dust by up to 60%. And that's
Mm.
just studying lead dust. But the bottom of shoes have been found to bring in pesticides and DDT, which is a highly toxic pesticide banned decades ago, but it's so persistent, it's still everywhere. Uh, Bottom of shoes have also been found to track in coal tar, a carcinogen that's often found in things that pave roads and driveways. So there are various things that get tracked in from the bottom of shoes. So if you just leave them outside your home or at your front door, then you can significantly improve your indoor air quality.
Hmm. Oftentimes, when people are trying to switch to non-toxic products, they could be more expensive for some people. So, do you have any tips for helping people detoxify their homes and lifestyle on a budget?
I have so many tips. In response to the reaction that less toxic living is only for the wealthy and privileged, I created two workbooks that have checklists of the free or budget-friendly tips that everyone can afford to do. If you have a home, you can afford to do these things. And
Mhm.
so they include simple behavioral changes to reduce your exposures to um, uh, to improve your indoor air quality, like air, dust, hands, water, and sleep. And so another high impact, simple tip is to wash your hands, especially after touching like technology keyboards, because chemical flame retardants are often used in electronics, and other chemicals are released in the materials that make up technology. But our fingertips absorb so many chemicals and heavy metals. So if you can just wash your hands definitely before you eat, then that's really high impact. And we talked a little bit about some behavioral changes to reduce EMF exposures. So there are plenty of things. I would say if you're looking to decrease your purchases, a really great area to focus on is your cleaning products. And the most non-toxic approach is a do-it-yourself cleaning approach with a handful of ingredients that have been time-tested for over a century. They involve baking soda, vinegar, hydrogen peroxide, water, Castile soap, and during COVID, I adopted isopropyl alcohol and had been blown away to discover the multiple purposes of it. It polishes metal in an amazing way, but it disinfects, and it's so great to clean keyboards with it. So detoxing your cleaning approach is very budget friendly. You'll probably end up spending less money. And if you're not yet ready to go from cleaning with conventional products to a do-it-yourself cleaning approach, then my Detox Academy has this like transition path, because I couldn't switch overnight either. It requires so much behavioral change that there are ways to find less toxic choices, but it does require a bit of work. And so looking at the Environmental Working Group's database on cleaning products is an excellent resource to find safer, off-the-shelf cleaning products.
Yeah, I love the EWG website. There's so many resources on there. And when I first started with this transition years ago, the first thing I did for cleaning was, it was so simple, just buy vinegar and I would put it in a glass bottle and add some essential oils to it so it didn't smell such of a strong vinegar smell as well. So that was my favorite first little non-toxic hack that I started doing.
Yeah, the evolving your lifestyle towards a really non-toxic approach. And again, nothing is non-toxic. Even certain essential oils can, you need to be really careful of. Lavender might be an endocrine disruptor or is an endocrine disruptor. So you still have to be really mindful of a natural approach, but the least toxic lifestyle available to us is so rewarding and fulfilling in many other ways. It's really deeply healing. It connects you more to nature and to your senses. I think as you eliminate toxic exposures, you feel more in body, more connected to how your body's communicating to you all the time. Longer term, I think that what can be really worthwhile for the budget is addressing your beauty and well-being from the inside out. So even if you just want better skin, by trying to improve your skin quality from the inside out, it just lowers the likelihood that you will need to spend more money on skincare products or doctor's visits long term, and you'll feel so much better. I just feel like focusing on your inner ecosystem and optimizing that is just the most worthwhile investment of your time and effort.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, food is medicine. So eating an anti-inflammatory diet and changing that is going to have a massive impact on how your skin looks. I'm super curious about what was the moment that drove you to dedicating your life to advocating for a non-toxic lifestyle?
The one moment that changed me forever is when my first daughter was like 3 days old, and I was reading a book by a pediatrician about how to feed my daughter and other developmental needs of an infant. And I read that there are hormone disrupting chemicals in some baby bottles and cancer causing chemicals in some baby bottle nipples. And that was deeply upsetting. And my reaction was, this cannot be true, because if this were true, my pediatrician or my OBGYN or somebody else would have mentioned this before. And that moment represented probably thousands more moments of discovering some seemingly harmless product I bought was exposing my daughter to toxic exposures. So that was like the first life-changing moment. And then what was really profound was what we talked about earlier about realizing that there have been almost 300 industrial chemicals found in umbilical cord blood. And these chemicals are not, a lot of them were not things that are necessary, my daughter was necessarily exposed to through industrial facilities far away that I can't control. Some of these chemicals come from fast food packaging, cleaning products, the furniture in my home, things that I buy. And that's when I wanted to do everything I could to detox what I buy, own, and do, because I can control those things. And it's been a really intellectually fascinating and even spiritually rewarding experience.
That's amazing. Have you noticed any impact on your health or your family's health or anything since making all of these changes?
I have. Someone pointed out to me that it was unusual to hear my experience of having been super healthy since I was little. Ever since I was in lower school, like 6 years old, I remember loving vegetables, loving like really fresh, clean foods. My mom and my brother loved fried foods and meat. I just didn't. I loved very foods that were just really nutrient dense. And I loved exercise. My greatest weakness has been poor quality sleep. I'm a bad sleeper. But I also played varsity tennis in 7th grade. I've exercised a lot. And someone said not many people could say that they've had such healthy habits from a very young age. Yet, in high school, college, even middle school, I felt so bad. My energy felt really, really bad, and very volatile. And I thought, like, I am considered the healthiest person around. Why do I feel so bad? Something is just wrong with me. And I just thought something was wrong with me. And then after detoxing what I buy, own, and do, a lot of like things in my home for my young children, I like first went fragrance free because that is something I never thought about before. I felt so much better. Um, like it sounds weird, but like more in my body. I think I was less distracted by chronic symptoms I lived with almost my whole life. So I didn't even realize I had these chronic symptoms until I eliminated certain things, starting with fragrance. I then didn't have like a certain brain fog and nausea in my chest and other things, and more energy, even though I sleep less since becoming a mom. I feel better than ever. And the main change is detoxing chemicals, heavy metals, and EMFs. And the EMFs, I didn't really, even after being really mindful of many things like the wireless, I wasn't aware of my exposures to wire technology. So like when I'd work on my laptop for hours while it's plugged into an electrical outlet, and I'd be exhausted, but I wouldn't be able to sleep. And so
Mm.
once I realized, once someone with a meter showed me how shockingly high my exposures were from just touching a plugged-in laptop all day, I immediately started sleeping better and I could recover. So the key message I want people to realize is that when you make these tweaks, you'll just experiment with how you feel better. Like you will discover tweaks that make a big difference for
Hmm.
you.
Do you have any tips for someone who is listening and they're like, this all sounds really overwhelming? How can I start these tweaks without feeling super overwhelmed with all this information?
I think it's so important to find one thing, pick one thing you heard today that you don't do, and just work on that until it's a habit, till it's not work, it's just part of your new habit. And then when you're ready for another change that is not threatening, that feels like low-hanging fruit, work on that until that becomes a habit. That's the most sustainable way to change your life.
Oh, really great advice. We're going to wrap up here with a speed round. Does that sound good?
Great.
Okay. What is your favorite thing to do for stress reduction?
Binge watch a great TV series.
Okay. What's your current favorite?
Well, I'm definitely influenced by what will engage both me and a teenage daughter. And so with my almost 14-year-old who wanted to rewatch Gossip Girl, I said, let's watch something we haven't seen yet. So we just started the OC, which has been very fun.
Okay. Yeah, the OC. I remember that one. What is one non-toxic product that you could not live without?
Castile soap,
Hmm. If you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
the Maldives.
Oh, good choice. What is the best purchase you've made in the last year that cost you under $100?
What a fun question. Lately, I have been becoming really obsessed with edible flowers. And the first purchase I bought with edible flowers were a box of cookies that I thought would be great to give as gifts to share beauty and awareness of how a more natural choice can be so delightful and fascinating and amazing.
I love that. What else do you put the flowers on?
I've bought entire flowers, like an entire rose that you can
Mhm.
just steep in like a glass teapot. So
Okay.
just the visual of it is so beautiful. Like even it's just not only is the tea really amazing, but visually it's so soothing. And there are now sugar cubes that are made with roses and beets, and
Mhm.
I think it's blue flower, the bee butterfly pea, something like
Yeah,
that.
butterfly pea. Hmm.
Yeah. It's been so fun and exciting to discover really beautiful products that are made with natural ingredients.
I love that. Okay, last question. If you could leave the listeners with one tip that they could implement this week to help them live a healthier, happier life, what would that be?
I think because it's the holiday season and we're shopping more than ever, if you're touching receipts, be aware that there are toxic chemicals like BPA, which are often on the receipts to absorb the ink. And when you touch those receipts after moisturizing or using hand sanitizer, you can increase your absorption of it. So this is just a more recent example of why you should wash your hands often and just moisturize with, like, if you're at a restaurant, just take the olive oil and use that. That's like
Mm.
a, it's a fun hack, in that usually if you're having a meal with someone not in your family, their reaction is kind of fun. And it's just like mind opening for them to realize that if it's safe enough to eat, then it's safe enough to like moisturize your body with. So edible oils are a great way to moisturize. I don't know if that's the best tip. I'm really into moisturizing because I have very dry skin. And I guess I think that can simplify so much of your shopping if you realize that a high quality coconut oil or olive oil that you cook with, you can also moisturize with and like remove your makeup with and do so many
Mm-hmm.
things with.
No, I think that's a great tip, especially, I mean, I'm traveling right now quite a bit, and it's not always easy to bring a bunch of products and things with you, or go to a different country and know what is safe here, what, like, I can't read the labels. So just buying coconut oil or olive oil is so much easier, and we can use it for cooking and our bodies. So I think that's an amazing tip. And we'll give a quick bonus. Is there one specific oil that is like your overall favorite oil for moisturizing?
One that I find so multi-purpose is cold pressed organic coconut oil. And I do find that the brand, I notice a difference with brands. I just most brands, the oil seems to stay very topical, whereas the Nutiva, Nutiva, that brand of coconut oil, it feels more nourishing of my skin. Like it's actually doing more for the quality and health of my skin. And what I love about it is I buy a huge jar, moisturize my body with it, remove makeup with it. When I'm really feeling lazy about washing my face at night in the winter, I will just like, you know, like wipe coconut oil on my face and gently remove the makeup, dirt, and grime that way. I don't know why that's easier than washing your face. But as you were saying, I love that when I travel, I can just refill smaller jars with coconut oil, and it's so great for those multi-purposes. But then also when you're on an airplane, to just
Mm.
have it to like use as lip balm and to moisturize your hands easily after washing them. And the airplane bathroom is just so multi-purpose. I love the coconut oil, and I also love shea butter, a certain brand of shea butter, which is like a intensely moisturizing version of the coconut oil.
Hmm. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been, I'm sure, super, super helpful for people. And do you want to share where people can find you and how they can learn more about everything that you do?
My lifestyle brand is ruanliving.com, Ruan living. And I have many offerings, including a 40-day home detox, which I have spent years pouring my heart and soul into to help you intuitively detox your life with your informed common sense. So I hope you check that out. And I'm on all the social media platforms. Just look up Ruan Living.
Wonderful. We'll put all the links in the show notes. And thank you again for being on the show, Sophia.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video and comment, letting me know what you enjoyed and what you want to see more of. Also, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get alerts when new content is coming out and you don't miss any videos. And just a quick reminder that this information is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any illness or medical condition. Please consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, supplements, or medical treatment. If you're looking for a functional medicine practitioner, please reach out to me. And thank you again for watching, and keep striving to become your healthiest, happiest self.